It's the last night together in Rio. Hold me tight before I go.
Well, today we have a very special keynote speaker, and I don't think there's anybody in this room who actually doesn't know Karen Phillips. And so we feel very, very privileged to have her with us. The hotel actually has a history with her. Back in the day when we first rebranded to Sofitel, Karen was instrumental in getting that message of what is Sofitel. They hadn't heard of it. It's a French brand about French luxury, and so she was very instrumental in getting that message out and across the Gold Coast and further beyond, and look where we are today. So we're very grateful for the individual help that we've had here. But I first met Karen, I think I'd been here for about 3 weeks, and Rebecca was kind enough to take me to an early risers breakfast because I needed to network on the Gold Coast. I was the new female GM, and I needed to meet the other women on the Gold Coast who would obviously influence my job and influence the way that I operate and network throughout the city. And I'll never forget when I first met her because I had heard so much about her. Rebecca had told me all of her accomplishments, and I was a little bit like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I get to meet this woman. And I was humbly surprised that she made me feel like her sister immediately. She opened her arms in amongst all these women who knew how fabulous she was. She took the time to make me feel recognized. And for that, Karen, I'm always very, very grateful. I've been supporting what she does, and we keep running into each other at events. Been to many of her breakfasts. And last year when I joined the Age-In Diversity group down in Sydney to drive diversity and gender equality in particular through a core to start with, Karen came to mind. And I knew that she'd always promoted women, but I didn't quite know how. And one day I was flying down to Sydney, and I was in the airport, and as you know, you always have 15 or 20 minutes. And I had a few minutes before my flight, and I walked into the bookstore to grab a magazine. And I was on my way to an Age-In Diversity meeting, and I saw this book sitting on the shelf, and I thought, oh, women's words, well, how very appropriate. And it's, words of wisdom, power, and passion. 50 influential achievers share their inspiring insights. And I looked who was on the cover. I thought, oh, wow, she's got some power players here. We've got Julia Gillard and Terry Irwin and Miranda Kerr. And I thought, oh, I started flipping through it. I said, well, I'm going to buy this book. So I bought it, and I read it down on the plane. And I went to my meeting, and I said, have I got a message? What a perfect gift, because we're looking for something to give each woman when we launched back in October. Asia Pacific and WAG had said we want to give every woman a gift to make sure that they feel they belong to something. And in Asia, they gave every woman I think a little bracelet. And I just thought, women in Australia, they're really intelligent. I think they'd enjoy reading something more than having a bracelet. So I approached Karen. I said, Karen, I didn't know this about you. Well, what do they call it? Whatever the word is, the nighttime shadow writer. And I said, I would like to give this to women in a core to read about inspiring women throughout Australia. And Karen not only said yes, but she basically donated 600 copies of this book to a core for nothing. She, out of the kindness of her heart, because she's so passionate about what she believes women are capable of and that we need inspiration here and there. So Karen, from all of Accor and from all the women whose lives you've touched and that you will continue to touch, thank you, because this is a gift that will stay on shelves and that we will continue to celebrate. There are a few extra copies left, and so you'll see them around. If you did not make it to the launch, Karen is here. She's happy to sign them, and these are your gift from Age-In Diversity and Karen Phillips. Phillips. So please, if you don't have one and you're interested, please feel free to take it, because these are your gift. I've asked Karen to come and speak today because she is so passionate about women in business. And we were just talking downstairs, and I said, this year on the news, they're actually talking about International Women's Day. On the news this morning, I heard that women on boards in Australia have doubled in the last 4 years. That was on the 7 o'clock news. That is big. That's your prime time. And we got a whole sentence saying women are making a difference and they're getting into the right spots. They also followed with the second sentence that said we have a lot more work to do. And that's why we're here today. Last night I'm a big Pharrell Williams fan, and he loves women, and he loves women of all different sizes, and he was talking about his experience of his Happy song and how he's been a rapper and he's worked with, rappers. And all of a sudden, he's touching children, and he was talking about how this 80-year-old woman came up and started singing Blurred Lines to him. And he just realized that he has the ability to touch such a wide variety of women. And he said, what I love about working with women is every single one is unique and different. And that's what makes them beautiful. Every single woman is beautiful. And then he said something that I just loved. He said, if all the women in the world got together and held hands, they could, and decided that they wanted to stop the evolution of the world, they could. And then the guys quickly piped up and said, no, don't tell them that. We know that. That's why we're constantly trying to keep them in their place. So without further ado, Karen, please join me up here and tell us your story. Tell us why, how, where did it all start, and share your story with us.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this of all days, and thank you for wearing purple. I read that in the invite in the elevator on the way. I went, forgot about that bit. So thank you so much for being part of it, and also to our champions of change, the men in the room. Could you give them a round of applause? Because while today is about us, it's actually about everyone. It's about the future, and International Women's Day is actually officially celebrated on the 8th of March, which happens to be tomorrow. But I always say if it was International Men's Day, they'd be lucky to get smoko. With International Women's Day, we could have a whole month and we still wouldn't fulfil everything we'd want to chat about and talk about and share and celebrate. And as part of that, I think really International Women's Day is about celebrating a moment in time, but more importantly, marking a moment in time. And it's very important to actually stop, think, consider and act. And tomorrow gives us that chance to do so. And congratulations to Accor for this incredible initiative. May I say there aren't that many organisations in Australia today. There's 147 events around Australia in about the week that covers International Women's Day. And this is one of them. So when you look at all the organisations coming together, all the multinationals, all the international corporations, how many of them are actually putting on a day like today for their teams, for their staff, both men and women, and bringing you all together collectively from your different departments, from your different parts of the organisation, and giving you the chance, very importantly, to connect and unite. And that's really what International Women's Day is about. It's about having the opportunity to share, to give a smile, to say, you look great, to feel good in our own skin. And that's probably what I'd like to share today. First of all, is today's about you. And you can hear speakers up the front talk about us and our journey sound remarkable, and you think, oh my goodness, that's exhausting. How did you do all that in 22 years? But today is actually about you and your celebration. So if we start, could you turn to the person next to you? If it happens to be a bloke, pretend he's got for a minute, and just join him in the ceremony and just say, you look great, but I'm so much better. I always feel so much better when I do that myself. So give it a go. Give it a go. Turn to the person beside you. Choose someone. Now, I always find it...
Great, but that looks so much better.
Oh, thank you. And she does, I hate that. Is that women generally lack something inside. And that is the empowerment of ourselves. When I speak to women near and far, all the way around Australia, no matter their age, their background, the diversity, their size, their colour, any of those areas, is that when we stop and we're really honest with ourselves, we don't give ourselves generally enough credit. Is that when we look in the mirror, we're not always proud of who we are. We're not always inspired by who we are. And even talking to Amray this morning about the big International Women's Day event yesterday we had, her comment to me was, those women were so inspiring. It makes me think, what am I actually doing? And I said, look what you're doing, this is incredible, bringing women together. And yet as women, generally, when we read the magazines and see the photos and the images and read stories on other people achieving, we sometimes tend to look at ourselves and say, what am I doing? Who am I? Wish I was better, wish I had this. And we don't hold that empowerment within our own hearts. And so when you give everyone an opportunity like today to say, you're great, but I'm so much damn better, it actually gives us joy for a minute because we're joking about it, but inside we kind of go, oh, that felt kind of good. Now, I'm not inspiring you to go out in the street and try this as a pedestrian. However, because you may end up with a bit of a, block in the head of someone else going, really? You think so? But I think sometimes it's nice to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what? You're hot. Is that just me that does that every morning? Seriously. I thought other women did that. Whoa, you're looking good. And then I put my clothes on. But I never turn around just in case. Because I don't know where that came from, but somewhere in the night it grabbed hold of me and it's never left. And I think that's it. Today's about celebrating really who we are and what we are. The good, the bad, the ugly, the great, the things we'd like to do, the things we wish we had. It's about celebrating us as individuals. People often say to me, how did you create a book? Why did you decide to do that? And you can kind of go back through my journey. And I know that's one of the questions that was asked of me today is, what was your journey? Well, we need a whole bloomin' weekend for that, girls. Let's face it, we're all chatterboxes, and by the time I tell you, you'll be asleep halfway through. So you kind of really say, what made the decision of where I am now? And I think that's the most important part, because we all have journeys and we all have stories. And no one's really is any more important than anyone else's. And I think that's the value of International Women's Day. We all come with something very, very important, and that's our story. It's our play. It's what's happened in our life. And mine has kind of been played out in a public forum, yes. I've had the opportunity of meeting some incredible women and men over my years and the type of work that I do. But the people I'm mainly astounded by are people like yourselves. They're the people actually doing it. They're not necessarily the public profile faces. And that's why I decided to create Women's Words of Wisdom, Power and Passion, is because days like today we get together, we gather, we share stories, we unite, we have a laugh, and we feel like we're part of something bigger. And in fact we are. But the opportunity for this is not every day. And so I decided to create a book where I shared insights of women right across Australia, old and young. The lady who invented the bikini, who happens to be based on the Gold Coast, believe it or not. She's in her 90s now, celebrating her 93rd year this year. Miranda Kerr, one of the youngest, most successful Australian women living in America here. And has her life been easy? Absolutely not. When you read her story, she lost her boyfriend at just 17 years of age in a car accident. It changed her life in an instant forever. Most of us don't know that about her. We know their success, we see the glamour, we see the bikinis, we see the great looks. We don't remember that she also has had her own personal story. And I think through a book like this, it gives women the opportunity to realise that we're not just doing it on our own, that each and every one of us have had a similar or connected style journey. And actually, when I started the book, I thought, really, will women open the doors and answer the phone when I say, hello, I'm Karen Phillips from the Gold Coast? They're like, who? And I'm like, well, I'm writing this book and I'd like you to be in it. What? And I had that moment of fear. If I chose 50 women, would they come on the journey? Would some of those really highly successful women come on my journey to inspire others around Australia? And I have to tell you, 50 out of 51 said yes. The first 50 I contacted said yes. The 51st, Ida Buttrose, was unable to, because she had a contract with a publishing house that wouldn't allow her out of it. So 50 out of 51. And I kind of had to pinch myself saying, I'm talking to these amazing people. I'm visiting with these incredible people, and they're actually sharing of their heart. And those people that I selected for one reason. And that is that I knew that they would be honest and share of who they really were. One person I gave a little bit of leeway to, that was the then Prime Minister, because I knew she had to speak with the public idea in mind, and she couldn't exactly give her own personal view on all areas. But the amazing thing was those women shared for who they really were and the truth in their journey. Someone like Olivia Newton-John, who very openly said, you know, my parents were all academics. My grandfather won the Nobel Peace Prize. I came from a long lineage of successful academic-style people, and I wanted to sing. You know, singing in the shower was accepted. Being very smart was the regular family style. So she went to actually a university professor and said, this is what I'd like to do. Ha ha! And he said, you better be damn good at it. Now, if he hadn't have said that, where would her journey gone? It's interesting, isn't it? You know, Julie Anthony in Australia, she was a very young singer at an early age. She sang around the house, she sang while the family did different chores. And one day, a salesman came to her front door and was speaking to her parents back in the days when salesmen actually knocked and sold encyclopedias, when they actually knocked on doors and sold vacuum cleaners. For those under 25, you have no idea what I'm talking about. The encyclopedia was a thing that we all had 24 volumes of, and we actually learn about the world. And that's where you got your homework from, not like copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, that'll be fine. So I know it's a very different time, but it wasn't that long ago. The salesman stood at the door and was talking to her parents and heard Julie singing in the lounge room. He said, that's the voice of a nightingale. And her parents said, no, that's just our daughter. Because they were so used to the way she sang. And how many of us in our own lives are so used to the abilities that we have, or those in our family? We get used to what we are. He said, there's a singing competition in town tomorrow, being a Saturday. You must send her. You must. She has an incredible voice. What? Her? They duly sent her along. The rest is history. One moment, one sliding door can change your life forever. And these types of opportunities were really true. Really, really true. And when you read about each of the different stories, and not all the women were incredibly famous, some of them are just women doing amazing things with the time they had, a similar time that we all have on earth, making a difference in their lives and others around them. And when I decided to write the book, I thought, well, I want to launch it. You know, you hear about these book launches and people turn up and it's great. And I thought I could do it at the Sofitel, that'd be great fun. But I want to do something really in a bigger area. How about I choose a house? How about I choose the biggest house in Australia? How about I choose Government House? I mean, what can they say? No? They could say no, huh? I always believe if you don't ask, the answer is always no. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. If you do ask, what if it's yes? So I wrote the letter to the Governor-General, who I'd never met. And I thought, you know, if I'm asking if I can have the party at her house, then why don't I ask if I can have it on International Women's Day, the 100th anniversary, because that'll have to be a pretty big celebration, huh? So let's have it there. So I wrote that in. I thought, well, if I'm asking, I'm writing a one-page letter, I may as well write a two-page letter, and I'll ask if she'll be in the book as well. But if I'm asking if she'll be in the book, why don't I ask her to be on the back cover and say how great the book is? Because, you know, isn't that her job? She's a Governor-General. And so I sent it. And then I thought, the interesting thing is, if you send a letter, that's only one way of trying to get what you want. So is there another way? And it's a long story, but I used to date the former Prime Minister's partner, Tim. I know, exactly. So I decided he owed me a favour or 25. And I decided I'd phone him and say, hi, you live just down the road now from the Governor-General. I'd like you to knock on her door and send a note saying, not my former girlfriend, but a girl that I know from the Gold Coast is writing a book on 50 iconic Australian women, and would you please promote it? And would you write on the back cover, and would you have the party at your house? Or I'll tell the world what you really like. And like a good ex-boyfriend, he did that. And then I thought, you know, and I know a friend in Brisbane who's one of my closest friends, and she is a friend of the daughter of the Governor-General because she was from Brisbane. Quentin Bryce was from Brisbane. You know, why go one way when you can try three? And so I said, Danielle, could you do me a favour and pass it on this way and try and do it this way and try and make sure? So I had 3 different angles. I thought, what's the worst she can say? No? Well, she could, huh? She's the Governor-General after all. And one day I'm at the office and the girls say, Karen, there's Nathan McKenzie on the phone from the Governor General's house. I'm like, oh no, that's fantastic. So of course, when I have a very important phone call, I stand up because I think it gives you better, you know, ha-ha. And I took the phone call and I said, good afternoon, this is Karen Phillips speaking. Put on my best radio voice ever. And he said, Karen Phillips, this is Nathan McKenzie from Government House, how are you? Oh, Nathan, I'm so well. And he said, now, you've written to the Governor General. Yes, I have. He said, you've asked for 3 things. Indeed, I did. He said, well, anyone in sales here? Don't you hate that when they say well? You go, oh, drats. Or another word. He said, well, unfortunately, don't you hate that word in sales? Yeah, unfortunately you think, oh, where can I go, left or right? What can I do now? Because you don't want to end the... Don't worry, sorry I called. You've got to try and keep the conversation going, because in sales, the more time you got the conversation going, the more relationship you're building, the more opportunity there is for success. And the answer being changed from maybe or no to a perhaps or a yes. So, of course, I was there, legs apart at this point, standing there, and he said, now, unfortunately, the Governor General is unable to write on the back of any book. Well, how did I know that? Wasn't on the internet. And I said, really, that's very disappointing news, Nathan. And then he said these words, however, he said she'd be delighted to write on the inside cover. Is there availability? And I'm like, Olivia Newton-John who? You're so yesterday. No, Olivia wrote the foreword for the book, so I was able to kind of just move those words to there. Oh, Nathan, yes, of course there's availability. We can accommodate that. Not, oh, yes, please. Got to be very careful, very official. And he said, and furthermore, I love this furthermore, he said the Governor General would be delighted and honoured to host the launch of your book on the 100th anniversary of International Women's Day. At that point in time, I had to say, could you hold please for a moment? Put the phone down and go, yah-hoo! Oh, Nathan, thank you. Now, just checking the dates, I'm standing there like my eyes, the girls around the office jumping up and down. Listen to the phone call, of course, very official. He's like official, I'm trying to be official, I'm jumping out of my skin. She's paying for my party. And not only that, and then he said, and furthermore, loving this furthermore, he said, we'd like you to invite the 50 women in your book to the official Australian International Women's Day 100th anniversary celebration. We all get to party in the big house. And so it was. And the most amazing thing happened because I asked. Did I believe it would happen? I never let myself think, no, it would not. I just believed that it could. And I think for many of us in our lives, it only takes that. It only takes the thought that there's a possibility. You don't have to be the Prime Minister. You don't have to be a supermodel. You don't have to be a superstar. You just have to be a regular person believing you can do great things. And so the launch of my book 4 years ago tomorrow was at International Women's Day, the national celebration. It was given as the official gift to all the special guests of the Governor-General of Australia, to all the female politicians, to all the international guests. And we stood there, the women out of my book, the regular women who'd had extraordinary journeys, the 5th generation farmers who are making a difference here in Australia and Africa, the famous people like Terry Irwin, who we all know and love, and she was just as excited as the rest of us to be sharing this amazing journey with the rest of Australia. 10 years ago, would I have thought that was possible? Never thought about it. It came to me in the shower one night, as ideas often do. And I think the reason I share that story today is because anything is possible. Whether you want to go back and play netball after 20 years of not doing it, whether you want to raise $1,000 for a local charity, whether you want to support your child to go on and become one of the representatives in the 2018 Commonwealth Games right here on the Gold Coast, whether you want to raise money now the government isn't funding your organisation. Did they give up and say we'll close the doors? They've found another way. And I think for all of us, whether we're in sales, whether we're caring for clients, whether we're serving customers, this is our job always, each and every day, living in Australia, is the opportunity to believe that we can and know that we can, because anything is possible if we believe hard enough. And I believed that that would happen. I truly did. I never thought it would not. I knew the party was at their place. Loved it. Sofitel, choice of government house, you've got to take it, right? You really do. And so when people say, why that? Why you? I say, why not? And for all of us, International Women's Day gives us the opportunity to rethink who we are, what we're doing, what can we do with our journey. I always say that you get one chance, one time. Until they prove us wrong, we don't really know 100% that we come back again. So what are you doing in this life to make it the best ever? And for most of us, if it's not the best, if you're not loving what you're doing, if you're not loving most days, if you're not loving the life you have and the people you're sharing it with, then choose something different. Because no one else will for you. No one made me do that book. No one's made me on my journey. I have. I've made a decision. I'm a Tweed River High School girl from down the road at Tweed Heads. My father said I should become a secretary because that would give me a good background. I thought, blow you, I'll become a journalist. Am I a journalist now? Each and every day I am. Because the words I speak, the words I write are always in my mind about the training I had. And hospitality, I think, provides one of the best industry opportunities for women anywhere in Australia. It really does, whether you're back of house, you're front of house, you're dealing with the customer, you're dealing with customers within the organisation, we have the ability to live a fantastic life. And, you know, I was here with Accor. I worked, obviously, as Amray mentioned, with the launch of Sofitel, and I am proud to this day of the work that we did in launching this hotel. Every time I come here, it holds joy in my heart that this has part of me and I am part of it. And I think we all stand for this. Each time someone comes to your hotel, whether they be a tourist, whether they be here on a convention, you create their memory. The way you make the bed, the way you set the room, the way you ensure they have a great experience at breakfast, you set the tone. And that is not a small thing. You know, for some people visiting on a holiday, this is the money they've saved for 2 years to get here. You know, some people with the Accor Club, this is their dream. It is their only opportunity to be able to travel the world and do it in style at an affordable rate. And you've created that in some way for them. For some people at a conference, they're here and it's their first conference and they've never been there with the big bosses and they're not sure what to do and they haven't stayed at hotels before. They've only ever had the opportunity to stay in caravan parks or motels, and you provide this experience. You give them, I love your outfit today, you look great. What a beautiful day, welcome to the Gold Coast. It's our pleasure to have you staying with us. Those simple words can transfer a difference. You know, we never know how people will arrive at our properties. We never know what they'll be like when we pick up the phone and speak to them. We never know their journey, as we didn't know the journeys of some people in this book. We never knew this is what happened to Miranda Kerr, because they don't talk about it. It's only that moment of time and that pure connection that we all offer, and that can change someone's moment, it can change someone's day, and it can change someone's life by a pure sliding door. And in hospitality, we have the opportunity and the joy of being able to provide that, to connect, to unite and to share. So think about that as you're sharing today, tomorrow and in your future. Everyone went to a huge effort today to wear purple just for one day. What are you thinking of for the next and the next? Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Karen. That was, she always puts a smile on every person's face in the room. Karen, just a few questions and some great lessons in that, and I hope you heard that. My dad actually told me when I was young, don't learn how to type, you'll always have a secretary. And wow.
It's America for you. Tweed Heads, America.
And funny enough, the computer, I was working in Silicon Valley in the computer age and I didn't know how to type. So at the age of 30, I went back to college to take a typing class. So greatly appreciate the skills that have now helped me where I am today. Through Age and Diversity, we are not just focusing on gender diversity. And so for those champions of change, the men in the room, I would like to say that we are going to celebrate International Men's Day this year, and we will all dress, I don't know, what do men do? What are their dark blue and black. We'll probably
Stubbies here in Australia.
Yeah.
I get one little stanger for morning tea.
Yeah. We'll do a barbecue. We'll do a barbecue on the pool deck.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we are celebrating. We're also looking at mature-aged employment and the opportunities, because we are growing older, and we're also looking at Indigenous employment, and that is an opportunity that Accor is. We've had an Indigenous program for 10 years, but the opportunities now to work more closely with that community, especially with what we've done through Yarrow Water here at Sofitel in this region. There are so many doors that are opening up. So Age and Diversity is truly about celebrating diversity and what each and every one of us bring. But today it is all about us.
funny about that.
Karen, just a couple of questions. First of all, I want you just to think if you have a question, but I have a couple of questions that have some staff have asked me to ask. First is, have you read the book Lean In, and what do you think about it?
Okay, and for Lean In, has everyone heard of the book Lean In? So it's written by, well, she's the CEO, believe it or not, Sheryl Sandberg's her name, and she works for an organisation you may have heard of, Facebook. And she's the CEO, but she also has children. She went through an incredible life and pathway to get where she is now. And she actually talks about the kind of wordage lean in, which means while you're in the job, while you're working, don't sit back at the boardroom table. Don't sit back and just let it all pass you by and then wonder, how come I wasn't offered that job? How come that passed me by? How come a male was given that position over me? What are we doing as females, particularly in gender diversity? And we're in the gender diversity age. We're in the champions of change age. So what are we doing as women to make sure we're at full throttle as much as we can? That's an overview of the book. The book, wow. It's interesting because when you read the book, if you live in America and you read of her background, is that when she grew up, she did some very interesting things that I urge those of you who have children to think about, because it's not something I really thought about. When I went to high school, I started work, I lied, as you know, Tweedheads girls sometimes do, and said that I was 15 when I was 13 to get a job in the Coolangatta pie shop because I wanted my own money so I could buy my own clothes and look hot, really. That was about it, really. That's all I focused on. Not saving money, but looking good on a Saturday night. Like, it was as simple as that. The interesting thing is when Sheryl Sandberg talks about the type of work she did after school, she worked for a senator. And I kind of go, wow. What a difference that was. Here's me learning about the different pie shapes, whether that's mince or chicken, and she's working for a senator, and how did that leverage her in her future role? And I think here in Australia particularly, we don't always, unless we come from that type of family background, consider where our future may lie. Not all of us as women, but for many of us. We're busy about today, we're busy about the fellow we might meet, we're busy about the future we might have, we're not thinking strategically. You know, if I thought strategically at 20, I would have bought land at Balinga. You know, how many are you with me on there? We'd all known each other, we could have put in a bit of money, shared it together and sold it for a mozza. But I wasn't necessarily thinking that way. So I think that the lessons in the book are bigger than just lean in, aim for the top, be the best you can be. I think it also gives us the opportunity to stop and think about the decisions we made and those women that we work with, particularly the younger women we work with, if we're becoming more mature now, and the advice that we can give them. Are you planning for children? Because many women are, but they're doing it in their late 30s and it's perhaps too late for them now. So how are we building and preparing our life? And I think that, you know, we're all working as an older age now, so what are you going to be doing when you're 60 or 65? Will you still be working? Will you have enough money in the bank account? Are you an individual? Are you hoping the male will manage it for you? So I think if you look at the book in that way for Australians and it gives you that line of thought, then it's a fantastic opportunity to open up your own life and give some consideration to those areas.
Thank you, great answer. One of the messages I got out of it is that we as women trying to have families and the career and the life, we actually need support. And
Absolutely.
Having that support, whether it's family, whether it's the partner, whether it's a great mentor, man in your life, that support was key. And just to make you feel a little bit better, my first job, I did lie to get it as well, because I was only 14, you can't get a job before you're 16. And I did work in a chocolate shop because I didn't want to shop at JCPenney anymore. I wanted to shop at Macy's, which would be the equivalent. I didn't want to go to Lowe's, I wanted to go to
David
Myers.
Jones, yeah.
So yes, so share that love with you. No wonder we're kindred spirits.
We don't recommend you necessarily lie.
No,
We'll say this to the camera now, not necessarily unless it's for good and not evil. Isn't that what you tell your children?
It's just little white lies. Nobody got hurt from that. Work-life balance.
Yes.
Some of the things that you said in your speech today, some of the work that we've done so far with age and diversity is helping. We've done some webinars and some face-to-face training. We've talked about personal brand. We've talked about self-reflection. So a lot of what you do, we talked about networking. God, this woman, like, seriously. You embody all of these things that we're talking about and we're trying to teach the women in our company about. You have a really full life. And how do you balance work-life? And I suppose, how do you define your success? Because you talk about how sometimes we talk ourselves down. How do you define your success and where you are today?
Well, I'll start with work-life balance, because I think for women, we're not always so good at it. I think for women, there's a big pie, and that last little slither, the burnt bit, is for us. And when I look around and lots of mums I can see in the room, saying, yes, that's me. If I speak to men and I say, how many times do you play golf a week? Put up your hands if it's once. Men go, that's me. We love men, of course. But if you say to women, how often do you have a massage? They go, once a week, girls. They go, oh, no one else will put their hand up. I'll just put it back down. It's really interesting when we actually talk about the value we place on ourselves, the honour we give back to ourselves. And I say, what's the value of a woman? If something happened to you today and you got cancer, you became ill, you couldn't work, what is the cost to your family? What is the cost to your own personal life? And so how often do we value ourselves as, if I'm not healthy, we push this engine, we want it to run like a Porsche, and, we're putting old mucky oil in there, like an old 1962 VW, and going, what's wrong with you? Keep going. Where's that grunt? It's exhausting out there. Anyone else exhausted? Don't worry, the bosses aren't looking right now. Anyone else exhausted? Anyone else a bit worn out? Anyone else on that thin line? Anyone else hanging by a thread? That's just me, huh? The fact is, there are days like that. I bought a dog when I was in my mid-30s and single, and I decided, not because I didn't have a boyfriend, but because I had to give myself a valve. I had to give myself, time off the pressure. I had to make myself walk, and I wouldn't do it on my own. So I decided to get Jack the Schnauzer, who sadly passed last year, and he gave me nearly 13 years of an amazing life of joy, because he would give me moments of joy. And parents will say this with their children, it's that one smile after a horrendous day that makes you think that's why we have them. And I think for women, we must find balance in our lives. We see others and we envy it. We look at men and wonder why they just don't seem to understand other things need to be done around the house. It is Wednesday night, that's garbage night. It has been for several years now. Why are we stressed about it? Why are we thinking about it? And we know generally the blokes are fantastic. But, when we look at ourselves, I think it's honouring ourselves and whatever makes you feel good. Is that going for a walk? And you need to value that and put it in your timetable, because if you're not caring for yourself in your 30s and you're not caring for yourself in your 40s and you're not caring for yourself in your early 50s, can I assure you, your 60s and your 70s are going to be very, very difficult. Your health issues will increase. The chance of having illness and sickness goes up by multitudes. So when we look at that, it's easy to say I'm only thinking about today, but if we're not caring about ourselves, how can we expect others to value us any more than we value ourselves? So the answer is, for all of us, we have our individual path, and I think if you're not looking at that now, today's a good day to kind of say, you know what, I just need 10 minutes out. I need to read a book. I need to go and grab a magazine. I need to say I'm going to the butcher and just divert for a minute and sit in a car park with a coffee if that's what it takes, and just have a minute out and listen to the radio. Whatever it is you need, make sure you do it, because no one else will for you. That's my balance trick, and I'm not that good at it all the time. I'm really not. But I work at it every day and every week to try and be the best I can be in that area. I think success is defined by many things. Now, so people talk about success being grateful. They talk about success being happy. They talk about success having joy. And I think that it's not always about money. It would be so easy if it was. Win the lotto and you're happy. Most people who win the lotto, over 62% of those people end up in a worse position within 5 years. And that's because valuing what they have isn't necessarily what they've learnt. And I think that stands to reason for most of us as well, is what is success for you? Is it going home and being happy at home? Is it coming to work and feeling joyous that this is what you've chosen to do? And if it's not, you have to relook at those values. And success means different things at different times of life. Success at 15 is happy you got a boyfriend. You know, success at 18 means you can drink, maybe. You know, success at 21 means you've survived in some areas of the world. Success at 30 might mean that I'm married and I have children. It may mean that I'm still single. It may mean that I'm in mid-management. It may mean a whole variety of things. So success for me is certainly probably different to success for you. I think success is when we hold an event like today and people come and they have an opportunity of connecting and sharing. I just think that, you know, to me, that's a tick in my life, because that is so important, because connection for me is what we're all here for. We don't walk alone. So I think that's success for me, just for me.
I feel really successful right now.
Oh, and you are. And I think, you know, I get a bit showy and go, how proud am I of, you know, Amray and what she does? But I am, and it's not kind of like pay you $5, you pay me, let's all sound good. It's the fact that to get to this position is really hard. And she, for those of you who don't know, Amray also lectures at university, at Bond University. She's involved there in the hospitality and tourism sector. And I think to choose those opportunities to share and connect is a big part of Amray's success. To go to Sydney and represent Queensland and wave that banner so events can be held like today, you know, and while you've all paid a little bit to come here today, this has been primarily financially supported by Accor as an initiative, and good for them doing something like this. But it's through individuals. You know, nothing happens without individuals making a decision. The whole world doesn't happen without individuals choosing. And these are good choices. And we have to say a little hello to the smallest little International Women's Day baby in the corner, coming in and out as well. We love that. Teaching future as she's here.
Thank you. Are there questions from the audience? Come on, girls.
We've startled them.
We have. We haven't really answered everything you could possibly ask.
Oh, we'd need a week. We'd need to do a bivouac for that, wouldn't we, really? Go on a leadership camp for a week or something.
Any questions?
Yay.
Do you have any ideas for a second book?
Yes, the answer is yes, about 400 books. Is that we're working on our second issue of this with another 50 iconic women this year. So, and actually, very sadly, Charlotte Dawson was to be one of them. So I met with Charlotte last year, and you know, in some ways, I honour her on this day, on International Women's Day, because on the outside she was this bubbly, incredible woman, and we had the opportunity of meeting her last year. She came to an event we ran for her on the Gold Coast with the launch of her book, and she talked about her demons then, but in many ways she seemed to have them in control. How many of us look like we do? So, you know, the answer is yes. The second book is on its way. We're actually working at, and I always say we, it sounds like there's hundreds of us behind me. We is me, but it just sounds so much bigger. Is it? Yeah, we're working on this book. Who are we? Me and all the Oompa Loompas. We're all working on it together. Sometimes you feel like that at home. You wish they'd just, you know, clean the house, those Oompa Loompas of a night time. But some children's book we're working on, and also gender diversity. But this year we launched the Australian Institute of Women. So that's a very big development for the women's market, those working within the market, and then also those wanting to create more leadership opportunities as well right around Australia. So that will be part of a book, and the book will be a big, really a workbook as part of that. So some different areas. Yes, thank you for asking. You must be, you're in sales, aren't you? I know that. She was smiling when I was talking about those phone calls before, when, you know, you have those horrible words.
She's one of our female GMs.
Oh, wow. Hello. Nice to see you.
Any other questions, ladies?
Yes. Oh. Actually, yes, and I am a huge advocate for our future, and I think that if we had the opportunity of working with young girls for them to see change, then they will be change. And this year, actually, I must say I'm very excited. This is the first time I've publicly announced it, in actual fact, but we launched the Empowering Young Women's program for young grade 11 girls right across the Gold Coast. We've received funding from a wonderful sponsor, and that starts us on our journey working with 2 universities. We bring them in for a day of mentoring. Many of the ladies from the book have come forward, people like Jess Malboy who have said, yes, what can I do? And that's the type of people we have in Australia, is to actually share their experience and their journeys with young girls, both leaders and those who really need empowerment and support, maybe, you know, at the lower ends of the class. You know, we have an immense amount of homeless girls on the Gold Coast still going to school. and getting up every day and trying to, lick their hair, make themselves clean, and still continue with an education, whether we believe it or not. So to take that forward and help empower those young girls to see a different journey, maybe they'll be buying the blocks of land at Balinga, but it's giving them the opportunity of choice and seeing you don't always have to be famous or successful or wealthy to follow the path you'd like. So yes, we're doing some work with empowering the young women here in our city and then right across Australia. So we're very excited about that this year. Thank you for asking.
What keeps you focused?
Sugar. Clearly, sugar and donuts. Depends on the day. I think a love of life. I really do. I think that I have days when I don't feel so great, or minutes, I guess, where you don't feel so great, or it's a big load to take. And I think we all have that, really, if we're honest. But I think what keeps me focused is the belief that we are here to make a difference, and that's my responsibility. It's the role that the universe has given me to play, and it's a role that I take on wholeheartedly, knowing that one person can make a difference, And I know that from our book is the emails. I'll just share a little story. I was looking through, nowadays, once upon a time we had a company called Media Monitors who you'd pay an exorbitant amount of money to, and they would come back and tell you when the hotel opened and send you all the snapshots and all the media coverage. And nowadays you just look up the internet and it all comes zooming in. And about a month after the book had launched, I was looking through the internet just seeing where the book had been featured and what was happening, and a girl called Rachie had written a blog post, which most of you now know what it is. I didn't even know how to get in or comment on it. I'm such a dag. And I looked at this post and she talks about her mother. She's got a photo of her with a book. She's got no hair and she's going through cancer in Perth. And her mother had been to a launch I did in Perth and bought the book and had me sign to Rachie, her daughter, and give me some words of inspiration I wrote in the book for her. And she wrote about how her mother had given her this book, and she'd read the journey of the three ladies going through cancer in the book and how that had changed her life and inspired her for change. And I'm reading this blog with tears in my eyes, reading it to my partner Tony, saying, can you believe this? This girl's been touched by her mother. I didn't even know where the book was going. And so I wrote back, not knowing in the blogosphere if it would ever get there, and said, I'm the author of the book, and so pleased to hear that you've written this and shared this journey with all your people. And about 2 weeks, and I said, if you ever come to the Gold Coast, I'd love to meet you, and all those things. And about 2 weeks later, I was reading her blog again because I'd kind of worked out how to click in and read it, and it said, we're coming to the Gold Coast. My father's bought me a trip before I have my second breast off. And I'm like, oh, I'm on the Gold Coast, don't know if you'll get this, but this is my mobile, hoping it wouldn't go out to the world. And I'd love to meet you. Can I tell you? I met Rachie. And we took her and her sister out in, I'm very lucky to have a BMW convertible. With my fair skin, it's probably not a good choice, but, and we picked her up at the convertible and we took her all around the Gold Coast, and we had afternoon tea at Versace, and we showed her up in the mountains and all around the city, and we spent the most amazing afternoon. And I go, how did that happen? And it's not really because of me. I don't take it as a personal thing. I just take it as that I was given the chance to write a book, and the book happened, and the book worked, and it's become a national bestseller a few times over, and that girl was given by her mother, and whoever knew that would happen. But by me saying to her, you write really well, she said, you know what, I just needed to hear those words because I want to be an author. And I go, how has that accidentally or synchronistically changed her life? And so in doing so has changed mine, and now I'm sharing with you Rachel's story today. That's how the world works, and that's what keeps me going, is just that.
Karen, you are an inspiration, and I'm sure you hear it every single day. Thank you. Thank you for your generous gift of time. Your words, the message I keep hearing from her is she listens to this. It comes from here. And if this doesn't make sense, if this doesn't sound right, then for heaven's sakes, don't do it. Follow your heart and look where it can take you. Amazing. Please join me in thanking Karen.